Hey, it's Catherine McNulty, and I am so glad you're here today to learn how to release guilt. Now, I have a couple other guilt videos that have gotten more views than anything else that I've done, which tells me that it's something that's really important to my community. And so what I aim Grief Inspired to do is really to help you move through grief. I want to make it easier for you. I want you to be able to move through your grief more quickly so you're not getting stuck. And I also want to remind you that you do not have to do this grief thing alone. If you found me, you're no longer alone in your grief, and I want to help you move forward with it. So today we're going to talk about how to release guilt. I probably don't have to tell you what feeling guilty feels like. Guilt is that feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach where you look back on something that has happened and you think to yourself, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have said this. I should have said that. Or maybe it's the reciprocal of that. Maybe it's, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have said that. But either way, you feel like something different than what happened should have happened. And, ultimately that had you done or said something differently, that the outcome would have been different. And whether or not the outcome would or would not have been different is a conversation for another day. But the feeling guilty is that feeling that can be so overwhelming. It can make us feel shame. It can make us isolate ourselves. It can keep us stuck and not really know how to move forward in our grief, not knowing how to let that go and how do you let that guilt out and how do you release it. So that's what we want to talk about today. And in order to do that, there's a premise that you need to really get your head around, and it's simple. But not everybody thinks about it this way, but it's totally true that what you think, the thoughts that are going off in your head will dictate how you feel. So imagine if you're constantly day in and day out saying, I did this to my loved one. I should have done this. I didn't do enough. I did something that I'm ashamed of. If you're constantly putting those thoughts in your head, think about how that's going to make you feel. So there is a direct correlation between what you think, the thoughts that you tell yourself in your head, and how you feel. So I want to share an example with you to illustrate this. And it is about guilt. So there were a brother and a sister who both were had a mother who was sick in the hospital with COVID. They didn't know whether or not she was going to make it. And ultimately, she didn't make it and she passed away. Now, the brother in the situation, he didn't do a whole lot. There was limited time when he could go see his mother. He did the best he could, but he didn't really go out of his way to spend a lot of time with his mother. He wasn't sort of riddled with guilt. He didn't feel guilty. After she passed on, he said, well, she was older. He was sad, of course. But he kind of looked at it and said, well, I'm glad that she's not suffering anymore. I'm glad that she's not in pain. And he sort of pictured her being more at peace. So he didn't really experience a lot of guilt. And that's in sharp contrast to his sister. So his sister didn't live locally, so she couldn't go see her mother as often as she wanted to. But she was able to travel because of the whole COVID thing. And she got there and she got to spend time with her mother. And she was there with her mother, right? She was able to spend time with her mother before she passed on. She was able to say all the things that she needed to say. But when she looked at the situation, she was riddled with guilt. She felt like she should have been there sooner, had gone to her mother sooner, had found a way to get into the hospital sooner, she was busy with work. She wished she had done more. She wished that she had, said more things to her mother. She wished that, things were different. And she was literally riddled with guilt and felt horrible. And these two people, the brother and the sister, they experienced essentially the same situation. The mother was in the hospital and she passed away from COVID. The brother did not feel guilty and the sister did. And she's riddled with guilt and she doesn't know how to move past it. And she's really, really stuck. And neither one of those is right or wrong. What I'm sharing is that it's different, that two people can basically go through the same experience and feel very differently about them. And that's because what we think dictates how we feel. So all of the thoughts that the sister was having were making her feel more guilty. And again, it's not that it's right or wrong, it's what is. And when I think of this scenario, one of the things that comes up for me is something that Tony Robbins, who you probably know because he's a very famous motivational speaker, one of his statements is that the purpose of pain is not to make us suffer. The purpose of pain is to make us move into action. And so in the scenario that we just talked about, the brother was he wasn't suffering from a lot of guilt. So nothing was moving him toward trying to do anything about it. But the daughter, his sister, being so riddled with guilt and feeling so much pain around what did or did not happen, it needs to move her to take action, right? So she needs to find something to do, an action to take to help move her through her guilt, to help her release the guilt that she's feeling. And when we go back to saying it's our thoughts that dictate how we feel, and I'm not talking about any Pollyanna being positive, what I'm saying is looking at what are the thoughts that the sister is telling herself. I should have done this. I wasn't there. I let my mom down. I should have done more. Why did I make work more important than my family? Why hadn't I forced the doctors to let me in sooner? All of the things that are going off in her head, she's telling herself, and it's adding to her pain. Now, this is very, very natural. Like so many of us who are riddled with guilt, we have these thoughts, but the way to release them is to acknowledge that they're there and listen to your internal dialogue. Listen to the thoughts. What are you telling yourself? And write those down. When you feel the most guilty, what is the thought that's going on? And once you understand what those thoughts are and how they're affecting you, what you can do is you can choose to change those thoughts. And it's not necessarily even changing them. It's you can replace the thoughts. And so it's using what's called a mantra to help you through a difficult situation. So a mantra is a statement or a phrase, or some people call it a slogan, that you repeat to yourself frequently. So when it comes to a particular situation, when it comes to a grief situation where you're feeling guilty, there's something that you can tell yourself in your head to help you get through it. And it's to tell you, the mantra is designed to help you feel a different way. So how do you want to feel about your guilt? Maybe it's something to say, I am releasing my guilt today. I am going to choose to feel good today. These are both mantras. I am learning to love what is. I'm healing. I'm moving forward. The love that I have in my heart for my loved one will only grow. These are all mantras that you can use, and they're thoughts and the phrases that you can put in your head. And if you start to repeat that mantra over and over again, you're replacing the things that are less than positive, the thoughts that are hurting you, that are making you feel worse. You can replace them with something that's going to put you in a different frame of mind. So what that mantra is really up to you. You can use the mantras that I have here, or you can create your own. Now I want to show you So I'm in my office here, and if you look over on my wall, I have lots of positive things to tell myself on my wall, but one of them is full of grace. And one of the mantras that I've been using lately is I'm giving myself grace. I'm letting, sorry, I almost dropped the camera there. I'm giving myself grace. I'm choosing to let this situation go. I'm choosing to not let this situation overwhelm me or make me feel bad. So when I say to myself, I'm giving myself grace, that's different than telling myself, I feel bad about this. I feel bad that I didn't do that, right? Instead, I say I'm giving myself grace today. And so that's what a mantra is. And it's why mantras can help. They can help if you replace what you're thinking with a mantra that's positive, that's forward looking, that's moving to you where you want to feel. Well, if you're feeling guilty right now, well, you want to release the guilt. So to be able to say a mantra as simple as I'm releasing my guilt today. I'm releasing my guilt in this very moment. That's something that can help you get through the moment. Can help you get through the hour. It can help you get through the day. So I've talked a lot about this, and I made this video probably longer than it should be, but it's because it's so important, and I want you to be able to use the mantras to really support you. And if you give it a go, and if you do it for a day or a couple of days, I think you're going to notice how much it's going to help. So just give it a try. Remember that the purpose of pain is not to make us suffer. The purpose of pain is to move us into action. So the way you can move into action is to create a mantra for yourself. Just pick one. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just pick one and get started with it today. And then let me know how it goes. Share your mantras down below. Put them in the comments so that other people can see what your mantras are. Go ahead and see what other people have written and just use the mantra. So you can hear that there's lots going on in my office, so I need to get back to my day. But I wanted to just take a minute and share that with you. So I hope that helps. I hope it helps you move through grief. I hope it makes you feel a little bit better, that it gives you tools that you can move into action. And again, as always, that you can be reminded that you are not alone in this. Have a great day.